Hi there. Today is going to be a bit of a fun one for me. I've got a new set of wheels to try out on the bike. I know one of the things that people have done and talked about doing is putting the GS wheels on the R for the spokes. Now, I've heard tell of people doing it. I've seen a couple of forum posts, but I've not seen any pictures, no real definitive information. So what I'm going to do today is hopefully do a test fit, because I went shopping and I managed to find these. So they're a front and a rear wheel for the R1100GS. I have discs on them and I have tyres that are terribly perished, but for the purposes of today, where I'm hoping to fit them and see what tweaks I need, what other parts do I need, how do I make it work, I think that'll do nicely. So at the moment, as I say, I've got the standard 3-spoke. So I think the first approach is I might just do the rear wheel first, get that hooked up, and then move on to the front, see how that works. Because I think from what I understand is the rear wheel is pretty much a straight bolt on. Right, what I'll do is I'll just drop in at various points as I'm trying to figure stuff out. Okay, so this is what we look like with the wheels. This is the GS front end, GS front end, GS front wheel and rear wheel only. So I have maintained the cross brace from the R, which gives, I don't know, I'd say what, 5mm clearance. I don't think that's going to be enough when there's a fresh tyre on this. I might be wrong, but I don't think that'll be enough with 5mm. Coming round, the brakes all line up. There is nothing in the spindle that you need to deal with. The axle bolts go through, the ABS ring connects and lines up correctly. This side brake disc goes on. Doesn't appear to be any issues with lines crossing over because they appear to mount to the fork, so I should next just be able to swap that out for this unit, which is the GS unit. So I did preliminary pick that up. Now I think that basically has a low point of here. So we will effectively gain a whole centimetre between the tyre and this cross piece. Just that low point there. Now, that also then brings me around to the rear. Now the rear is on. Everything lines up perfectly on the rear. It's connected, disc lines up, ABS ring lines up, and speed ring, whatever it's called on this particular model. Pads line up. The only problem is it's a bit of a pain to get the caliper in, but it's in. So that wheel is on. What you do have to do is remove the disc, and then also there's a little spacer here between the disc and the wheel. That means then you can swap everything across, but so there's nothing to do on the rear. It's all about this front now, and whether that front clearance is enough to not warrant changing the cross brace and instead put another mudguard on. Okay, so what I got here is this top piece actually mounted to the mudguard now. You see there's a mounting point just at the back, and these side holes there. That one there, just looks my thumb, is where it mounts onto the fork, just there. You'll see it mounts as so. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is how much height under here I actually have. What concerns me is that's quite far off the top of the mudguard. You can see there's some daylight going through there. So yes, it might have a bit of lip, but that distance there to the tyre seems quite close. Now, what I'm wondering is if it's worth instead staying with this and going for a custom mudguard. Perhaps reusing a section of this one, because I think this will work, or rather I don't think this will work because there's a lip here where it connects up. I go right underneath, you'll see there's just no clearance there at all, none at all. So I don't think using this in combination with what's there is a smart call. It's going to have to be some form, I think, of this top brace over here. I've had a bit of time to think about the situation and stare and figure out what I can do. I think this cross brace has to be swapped across with the GS one, as well as the front mudguard, which means I need a new ball joint, or I need a way of getting this ball joint nut off and put up across. So I think new ball joints or ball joint tool, and then realistically that cross brace goes on with that mudguard, this wheel. The next steps for me is one new front tyre, two new front tyres. I might see about doing discs as well. So that's really where I'm going to go. I think the larger wheel's going to work for me. Visually it works, which is the main reason I'm doing it. So today I am hoping to get my spoked wheels fitted to the Boxer here. Now I think I have everything I need to get everything fitted. I've got a new mudguard, I have a new cross brace, I have a new ball joint, I have obviously the front wheel, I've got new discs on the front wheel, so that's all been set up. So all I have to do is, in theory, jack up the front end of it, crack off this nut here, crack off these four nuts holding the fork brace, loosen all the brake cables, because I think that should all still clear from my test fit, but it just might need a little bit of things being cracked off and loosened. So I'm going to completely loosen all of that, and then hopefully I'll get everything completely disconnected, and then we'll just break everything up. So these are the four I'm looking to crack off, and this main nut here, and this main nut should hopefully just have this little rubber plastic rather on it to remove. And you'll see here this main nut is 21. There is a Torx inside that holds the ball joints fixed relative to the nut. So what I'm hoping to do is perhaps use my wife to hold the bars and everything else, and I'm hoping to just kind of crank that way with the nut across. Now I understand there's some Loctite in there, so I'm going to heat that up first, same as these here. They might have Loctite in from what I've read. So what I'm going to do is heat those up and see if I can crack off these four just enough to start things moving, so I feel a bit less insecure. That's the 6 in there. Let's see. Oh, this turns super easy. I don't know what I was worried about in that one. This side also super easy. Here as well. And now if I rotate the wheel here, again super easy. Right, so I know this fork brace comes off easy. That's probably going to be an 8, so let's find that. So this is an 8 hex into the 21 socket. Now ideally, from what I understand, I want to turn this that way and it's across, and I've heard this is torqued to buggery. So let's see first, do I get any movement? No. Let's try heating things up. A little bit of heat seems to have done the job, because now I am actually able to turn. So I'm using my knee to brace. And let me pull off so you can see what I'm doing. A bit further back. This isn't as tight as everyone said it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's tight. But I've got the socket here using the fork brace, using my knee up against the wheel. And with the 21, I am able to turn, and it is moving. A little bit of bungee cord here just to hang the brake lines from. Right, let's hang that there. And we'll do the same on the other side. Right, so next up, I think it'll be easiest just to actually get the wheel out of the way. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. And wheel pops out really smoothly. Okay, let's get this mudguard off. It's a 10 on the back, so that can come off. Then the rest of the mudguard actually has a bolt underneath here that secures the mudguard again to the top fork brace here. Rubber here, which is used, a bit of rubber that goes through there to secure the speedo cable. And that's mudguard off. Now you'll see underneath here we've got lots of clips that are holding things like the ABS sensor, the hard brake lines, so I've got to go through and disconnect all of those. So my current thinking is I should be able to disconnect this fork brace, drop this down a touch, slide on the other fork brace and put that in place. So let's see if that actually works out according to plan. Let me find the fork brace. Pop out, which it has done really easily. You can now see side by side the actual difference in the two. So the GS is a rise rather than a divot from the R. Hopefully I've got enough. Swing just to kind of get that nut in place. Because I think it's supposed to be as so, which looks about correct, which is good. So hopefully I can get all this tucked up underneath. Now there appears to be enough slack that I can hopefully get this mudguard fitted, and then we'll do another test fit of the wheels themselves to see if I need to move the brake line. Yeah, so let's find a way of bending that brake line forwards. This is what's going to end up costing me. Far enough. Okay, that's just loosely in place. It looks like I've got a front fender and nothing in the brakes look like they're binding or mounting badly. So yeah, I'm gonna tighten the mudguard bolts up. Yes, I'll tighten the mudguard bolts up, still leave these loose, get the wheel fitted, and then we'll go from there. So I think that's a good shout. So this wheel's off an 1100GS, and I'm going to have to jack the front right up to get underneath. So should have done that first. So after all that, that's the wheel in place. Obviously the axle's not tightened down, the brake discs, brake pads aren't yet mounted, and obviously I've got to do some torquing here, but it's now on, and it's on wheels. So what I'm going to do now is, I think, mount the brake calipers. I've got plenty of meat left on my discs, so I'm going to avoid changing them if I can, just to have sheer laziness more than anything else. And I want to be able to take it for a little test run today. So what I'm going to do is see if I can get these calipers on. They were a nightmare the first time round when I was doing my test fits. So let's see if you can watch me struggle for far too long. Right. Because of course these are brand new discs as well that I've got on here. So that's just slipped right over. A lot of drama over nothing apparently. Just trying to get the guide here in for the speedo drive cable. Because of course that's always buggered to get in after I take it out. There we go. Now that's in place. Nice. Right. So now that needs blue Loctite, I believe, torquing up, torquing up, torquing up. So what I'll probably do is drop you back in afterwards, because that's just me standing around with a torque wrench. And we'll go from there. And in the process of torquing this nut down, my Halford's advanced bit sheared. So I think I've hit the right torque setting. But for now, I'm going to take that out, put some witness marks on that and call that good. And there she is. This is now an R1100R with the R1100GS wheels. I am enamored with it. It's a lot easier to get on the centre stand now, so I'm not sure how greatly stable that is, and leaning it over on a side stand is a lot more scary. So I don't think I'll really be using the side stand very much at all. However, it's fantastic. I am really pleased with it. It's got the right stance and look for me. It just has a nice kind of scramblerish vibe and just gives it a little bit more of a classical look. So doing up this top nut here was my only real headache. That nut just there. That is supposed to be down to 110 Newton meters. I got to a lot of Newton meters and my hex bit snapped that was holding everything secure. I've got some witness marks on it. I'll keep an eye on it. If it moves, we'll deal with it then. But I think that will be fine. I've done a test ride around the block. Everything's good. I've torqued everything up. So I think 40 Newton meters for the axle, 20 for the pinch bolts, 30 for the caliper mounting bolts. I believe those were also 30 Newton meters, maybe 20. I'll have to double check in the book. And 210 for the main fork bridge to ball joint, and the ball joint top nut is 110 Newton meters. To do this yourself, obviously you need the GS wheels. I put on new discs and bolts all the way around, front and rear. But it's basically the wheels, mudguard if you want to keep a mudguard, a fork bridge. You can reuse your old nut and ball joint. I chose not to for easier fitting, but everything else can remain the same. And yes, it is a little bit taller, so it kind of sits very even on the center stand, and the side stand makes it feel a bit all over, but it does work. There's nothing you need to do on the rear at all other than just take everything off and put the new stuff on. That is a doddle. But now I have spoked wheels on my R and I really, really love it. I think the next thing I'm going to do is actually end up putting crash bars back on this, having taken them off. I'll probably give them a paint and get them fitted next. but I'm really pleased with the way this has turned out. This was a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of hunting. You don't need to do anything with the brake lines, which is fantastic. A little bit of bending the hard line to get it to fit in nicely, but that's it. Other than that, this is an easy swap. I thoroughly recommend it if you can find the wheels for a decent price like I did, which I think, if I'm not mentioned, was 40 quid for the pair. I think I then spent more on new tyres, new discs, new bolts. I mean, realistically, all of that was more than a wheel, because the tyres were 220 quid, the discs I think were 100 and something front and 180 quid rear, somewhere around there. 30 quid for the bolts on each side. Top tip, BMW bolts are 2-spec with the actual correct lock nut, Loctite already fitted, and they are cheaper than aftermarket bolts. So they're 20 quid rather than 30. I paid and got 30 because I thought, aftermarket bolts. But realistically, don't worry about it. Go to BMW, get them done there. Everything else I went aftermarket, but I'm really pleased with the look. I'm happy with the way it rides around the block. And now I just need to go out and have some more fun today. So thanks very much. If anyone's got any questions on what I did, where I got stuff from, happy to answer that. But this is a really fun, good job.